Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we will be doing another painting over my sketches video, and I do want to apologize for this one taking a little bit longer. We've been getting constant blackouts lately, so it's been hard for me to find the time to do this voiceover. But I did finish this a couple of days ago, and it's Legolas from The Lord of the Rings. It was suggested in my last video in the series, and once again, if you guys have your own suggestions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section in this video, and I will be doing the most upvoted comment for my next one in the series. I want to first talk about this gorgeous little notebook. I actually found this on Reddit, and I want to do a lot of the videos from this series in this notebook now. I just think that it fits some of the more recent paintings in the series. I think the paper is just perfect for doing my pen sketches on. The ink just glides on top of it. It is a little bit thin, and I think it's the thinnest paper I have done a video like this on. It's actually so thin that it bleeds onto the other side, which I can't even remember the last time that has happened with my pen sketches. And also it's a smaller size. It's 5 by 7 inches, which most of my sketchbooks are a little bit bigger than that. And the last thing about this notebook, which could be taken as a negative, is that it's lined. But I do actually feel more comfortable drawing on lined paper, especially for sketchbooks. I just feel like it's the most freeing. I just don't have the same pressure that I get when I'm drawing on my regular sketchbook, so I actually think that that's a good thing. I also think that it's more satisfying when the lines get covered by the paint eventually. So I am still using my Mia gouache, but there is one important thing that I added to my Mia gouache paints, and that is the permanent white from my Holbein. So instead of the white that came in the Mia set, I am using my Holbein permanent white. Since I had this big problem with the colors that I was mixing in my last video in the series just turning out super gray, I just wanted to get that out of the way initially and just I just started working with my whites from my Holbeins, and it did do its job, but there is one part of me that just wished I had done this with my Mia gouache fully, and so I just wish I had just used the white that came with the set. Just because with a scene that is lit like this, I just feel like it's not that important in this painting, because with darker colors, I don't really have that much of a problem with the graying. It's in the lighter scenes where I would usually have that kind of problem, and where it would actually start feeling like a problem. So I feel like I could have done this with just my Mia gouache, but since I did use my Holbein gouache, I do feel like it was so much easier. And with this scene, I actually think it only took me about 3 to maybe 4 hours working on it, which is not a lot of time considering how much time I usually spend on these kinds of scenes. But there is one thing that the white from the Holbeins really made easier, and that is how much easier it reactivates than the white from the Mia gouache. And the difference was apparent because before this I had to wash out my palette, and usually I don't do that, but for this one I had to wash it out completely because going from the very bright colors of my last video in the series to this one, I couldn't just work with my dirty palette, so I had to wash it out. But when I washed it, I just really noticed the difference between the two paints because the white was just sticking to my palette and it wasn't really, it didn't really feel like it was reactivating, which is something that I would notice when I was painting my palettes that I use for my Holbein gouache. So it was apparent too when I started painting with it. Just the white from the Holbein gouache just felt like it was so much easier to reactivate. And so I feel like just a point in this whole thing is that if you ever feel like you're struggling so much with the graying on the Mia gouache, maybe it would help to use artist's quality gouache for your white. It won't exactly be the same as just working with artist gouache completely, but it would really help in making your experience with working with the Mia gouache a lot easier. Going back to the scene, since most of the photo was just dark and there's lots of dark purples and even some blues in there, all of these colors I could have just done with the Mia gouache and I wouldn't have felt that much hindered with it. Most of those colors exist in the set anyway. I could have just mixed one or two and got the exact mixes that I needed. And you can see it's just such a dark scene. I also want to go back to the actual scene that I'm painting on. I want to be transparent and say that I actually just saw this on Pinterest. I didn't watch the movie before I started, and I only watched the movie after I was done with the whole painting. But when I did, I was so happy that I watched it anyway because it was so good, and I'm so mad at myself for not watching it as an adult. I actually think that I watched it once as a child, but I don't even remember watching it at all. I do think that I remembered Legolas being much older in my memory because when I was going through some of the screenshots from Pinterest, he just looks so much younger than in my head, and so it was actually hard for me to find a scene where he was lit in just a more interesting way. I felt like in a lot of the scenes his face was just smoother than I remembered, but yeah, this movie is incredible and it didn't feel old at all. I sort of expected a lot of it to not age as well, but I was completely wrong, and there were so many scenes that I could have painted and they would have looked great as a painting. But yeah, what an incredible movie. I wish I saw it sooner, but I'm glad I did, even though I am almost 20 years late to the game. So there's not really much to talk about. The painting went by super fast and the movie was awesome, but I want to talk about editing art videos because I did say before that this only took me 3 or 4 hours to make, and ideally I want to cut it down to about 15 to 16 minutes. So I want to talk about the process that goes behind that. When I watch these kinds of videos, before I started making my own videos, I always thought that it looked so easy for other people to do, and at least for me it doesn't work that way. most of the process when I'm painting is actually just me mixing my own paints. I would say about 2/3 of the painting process is me just trying to get the right colors in the palette. So that has to be cut when I'm editing these videos, and there would actually be times where I've cut out the process anyway, so it would look like I'm doing one brush stroke, but actually there were 3 or 4 cuts in between where I was mixing different transitions. So try to keep that in mind, that there's a lot of that going on when I'm editing these videos. I try to get them to be as satisfying as possible to look at as a video, but it's just not realistic in the actual artistic process. Since it's starting to rain again and I do have another video that I need to edit, I will leave you guys to enjoy the rest of the video without much more talking. Don't forget to leave out your suggestions in the comments or like the suggestions that are already in there. Thank you to my patrons for supporting me, and thank you guys for watching. I will be seeing you again soon.